Hey, it's Margaret Crenshaw with the Prodome team at Carolina Realty Group, and today we're talking real estate stuff. I am very, very excited to be here today with Christine Cassidy. Chris is a local CPA. She came to our office last week and spoke with the whole group of us, and I was really, really super impressed with her. Chris, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
The first couple of things we all just want to know is, tell us about your business, what's it called, and I know you also have a law. Tell us about that.
It's Cassidy, CPA. I've been around since 2000, actually 1998. It's
in Hilton Head.
In Hilton Head,
yep.
Yeah. It's a CPA practice. We do a lot of, I think we emphasize planning a lot of real estate, just planning in general. Sure, you have to do a lot of compliance work, but the planning is as to real estate, estate planning, individual, corporate, the gamut. We also do a lot of IRS representation. So,
and you bring your law degree and career into your CPA business. You were telling us last week that you really you kind of view taxes and whatnot from the other side as well, and so.
Yeah, I see tax planning as a continuum between what the IRS position is and what the court position is. And you don't. The IRS is often wrong about things, and it's ultimately a court decision. You don't always want to wait for the court decision because that usually means an audit. But there are many different positions, and the client has a lot of objectives and a lot of goals, and they can be accomplished if you look at both sides, both the IRS and the courts.
Well, I know for that very reason right there, you are a trusted advisor to a lot of people on the island. A lot of people I know. I worked with you when I was running another business. So again, thanks for being here. So what I wanted to dive into today was 1031 exchange. I've done a lot of those this last year. Chris, I really just wanted my database to hear it from a professional who really knows the ins and outs of it. I talk about it with my clients, but I certainly can't bring it the justice that it deserves. So if you could just kind of give us the premise of when to use it, how to use it, and what the do's and don'ts are.
Okay, sure. 1031 exchanges are the rolling of gain on a first piece of property into the purchase of a new piece of property. They have to be like kind. It's real estate to real estate, and that's the gamut. It can be not a residence, but it can be a rental, from a residential rental to a commercial rental. It has to be business or investment property. And generally speaking, to completely defer the gain, your proceeds have to go into the second property up. They have to be more purchase. The cost has to be greater in the second piece of property than the proceeds of the first. You also can't have any debt relief. The debt of the old property has to be consumed or increased by the debt on the new property. And then the 45 days and the 180. So you have some time constraints there as well. But the real importance to deferral, not only the time constraints, are that everything has to go up. Your debt has to go up, and your cost in the new property has to go up.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but for instance, if a seller were to be selling a second home and they wanted to purchase a commercial property, that would be okay to roll the 1031 exchange into.
Well, a second home is personal, and that's not like-kind exchange property. But there's a proviso there too, because just because the property started out as a second home or a personal residence. I had a family once that they were going for years into this home, and it was family owned, and it was considered a personal residence. And then as the generation passed and another generation came in, the residence really wasn't frequented by the kids at all, or the second generation. And so the question becomes, maybe that second home category characterization has changed into an investment category, in which case that you have like-kind exchange property.
So there's a fuzzy line depending on usage.
Yeah, there is. It's the weight of the factors. It may not be personal anymore. And if it's investment, you're really holding it. You're not selling it because you think it's going to go up in value. Then it's starting to look like an investment property, which is now the topic of a like-kind exchange.
So then thank you for clarifying. And then, so you refer to the 45 and the 180. What that means is that the seller of the property puts the relinquished property under contract, and then they have 45 days to identify the replacement property.
Yes, it can be up to 3 properties, and there's some restrictions there. But basically, when the seller, when the exchanger, they call it, the person that's giving up the first piece of property, all that has to go with a qualified intermediary, someone that's holding the cash. So you just can't get the cash back. And that qualified intermediary will require you to identify 3 new properties to acquire with that money within 45 days.
So, good point, because that was going to be my next question. The qualified mediary, we spoke about that last week, and I looked it up a little bit more. And I think that qualified mediation type company, do we have those here?
Yeah, some attorneys provide the service. Some are just qualified intermediaries. You don't really even need one here. It can be anybody.
It can be anywhere.
Serves. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the next piece is then that you have 180 days to get the replacement property under contract and closed in order to be compliant with the rules of the 1031 exchange.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we missing anything?
Well, there's that one issue about if you start out as a rental, can you exchange? The mixed use properties, people start out as either a rental or personal residence, and they hold the property for, let's say, 5 years. That seems to be the litmus test. And you then want to make an exchange into a new piece of property. Can you do that? What's the nature of the property? And it's interesting because, I'm veering off. It's where you're going to get your deduction for the primary residence versus a 1031. If it starts out as a primary residence and you hold it for 5 or 2 years out of 5 years, the whole thing is excluded. But if it starts out as a rental first and then it becomes a primary residence, you're sort of stuck with a 1031. That's all you can do.
And I just thought of another question too, because I'm thinking back in 2021, how many of these I did for the buyer. I was always the buyer's agent on these. In the contract that we write for the sale of that purchase, we have to include in Section 6 under terms that the purchaser and seller agree that that they are taking part of a 1031 exchange. Yeah. And I think that sellers might go, whoa, wait a minute, what's that? But it means nothing really to the seller.
No, it's the person exchanging the property that they want that in the contract. It's important for them. But the other side of the contract doesn't mean anything to them. They're not trying to defer anything. Right.
So I think some sellers in some cases were like, well, wait a minute, do I want to participate in? What does this mean? What would be a potential, what could go wrong?
Really nothing. Nothing for the person nothing for the person acquiring this relinquished property. They really are a sort of a non-entity in the 1031. They just have to be notified that they might be part of a 1031, but it's really almost inapplicable to them. It's all about the person exchanging the relinquished property. They have to get the approval.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, good. That's a wrap on 1031 exchange, because I have another question for you. And this one I'm going to shout out to my cousin Kathy Gherardini in Atlanta, Georgia, who is an agent with Dorsey Austin Realtors. And Kathy and I, being first cousins, actually we're second cousins, but we're very close. We've done a lot of referral work together this year. She being an agent in Atlanta, she refers a lot of her buyers to me who are looking for second homes on the coast. And so she has quite a bit of a presence on social media, and she's just putting out some information to make sure that her clients who purchased in 2021, to make sure that they file their homestead exemptions by April 1st. And so it got me to thinking, well, gosh, when Christine comes on Thursday, I'm going to ask her, except today's Tuesday, that homestead exemption, can you briefly explain it? Is that something that we see here in Hilton Head a whole lot?
I think you're talking about the application for the 4% on the property.
I think
tax.
I am.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, sure. Everybody, they have a second home here. It has a 6% ratio on it. they now make this their residence, and they want to occupy the home now as a primary residence, so they have to apply for the homestead exemption. I think the application has to be by January 15th of the applicable year. I'd be wrong on that, but then all of a sudden it changes character in terms of the property tax, and it goes to a 4%.
Great. And so then the other thing would be for properties that don't, this was just a question that I thought of as you were speaking, for properties that are already primary residents, for people who already live here. What are the rules on, they can only file for that once, isn't that true? For a primary?
You only have to file once, and it can unless the way you hold the property changes, the 4%. If that's what you're talking about, the 4% just continues on year after year. Just
continues on.
Unless, but a big problem sometimes, not a big problem, but sometimes it's a little hiccup, is that if you transfer your property into a trust, or revocable trust,
yes,
for estate planning purposes, you have to reapply for the 4%. So because now it's considered commercial. Yeah. I don't know if that's what you wanted to know.
Nope. Yep. I think that was what we were going with. That's a question all the time, actually. And as long as we're talking about it, I gave 3 different buyers the same chat today. They always want to know, what are the taxes on this? And of course, for primary residents, the rate is 4% in all of South Carolina. It's not just Beaufort County.
Right.
And then for a secondary residence, it's the 6%. And somebody from California said, 6%? That's ridiculous. That's too high. But I think he was thinking it was like 6% of the sales price, when really there's a millage rate, right? What's the equation that you write, or I should write, when I explain to people how this is calculated?
You know, I don't know it. I know that they come up with some value, and then there's the millage rate, and then the rates applied against that, the 4 or the 6. But yeah, it's some calculation that Beaufort County does.
So there is indeed, and I have done a thing on this before, but just to bring it up again, since we're talking about it, if you go to Beaufort County Tax Calculator, if you type that into your Google search bar, it will indeed come up. You type in a sales price, and it just spits it out like magic. Yeah. And it's still the best explanation I can give anybody.
It's nowhere near 6% of the value of the property. It's way below that.
No, so rest assured. Yeah. And lastly, so it is tax season, and people are preparing. Everybody in my office is freaking out. They haven't done a thing. What are your thoughts, advice, and tips on folks getting their information to their CPA this year?
Well, they should, I don't know, they probably should do it quickly before the law changes, or maybe wait until an extension to take advantage of the law that probably is going to change mid-tax season like it did last year. These are crazy times with the IRS and the law changes. So it's, I know I used to know exactly what to tell people, but I don't anymore. Yeah.
Must be trying times for CPAs as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's fun.
Well, I do thank you so much
for
coming.
Thanks for having me.
And I totally, last night when I was thinking about what I was going to say to everybody, I was going to point out Chris's glasses very first thing.
God, I meant to take these off.
They are so cool. They're square on one side and circular on the other. And I just think that is so cool.
Thank you. Thank you.
At any rate, good luck this tax season.
Yeah.
And thanks for joining us.
Well, my pleasure. Thank you.
And we'll see everybody next week.